Hello, 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 and welcome back to yet another NFL video. Today, man, we got the NFL Week 4 predictions and Week 3 reactions, of course. Yeah, man, season's been great so far. Very unexpected, but I'm still been enjoying it. I hope you all have been as well. And before we get started, thank you for watching. Let's get right into it. So, Thursday Night Football today, the day I'm recording this, we have the Cowboys going on the road and playing the Giants in New Jersey. So both of these teams, well, it's interesting. You had the Giants kind of falling flat on their face in week one, right? Just embarrassing performance against the Vikings. The next game against the Commanders was embarrassing. The first team ever in NFL history to outscore their opponent 3 touchdowns to nothing and lose the game. It was a joke. It was embarrassing. It was sad, really. And then you have last week where I expect them, keep in mind the 0-2 Giants on the road at Cleveland. Were they on the road or at home? But they playing the Browns, and I'm expecting them to get absolutely crushed, like I thought the Cowboys would in week one. But both these teams already have beaten the Browns, and the Giants looked good last game. Their defense looked great, defensive line especially, and their offense. Daniel Jones has not played bad 2 weeks in a row. Malik Neighbors has been amazing these last 2 weeks. And then you got the Cowboys who started off with that blowout win over the Browns, looked like they could be a really good team. In the last 2 weeks, embarrassed, absolutely embarrassed 2 weeks in a row at home. And like, listen, I knew their defense would take a step back without Dan Quinn. They lost a lot of pieces, guys. They don't have Deron Bland right now, but it's like, man, that defense is a joke. They're terrible. The Saints came to Dallas and played their best game in 5 years. Like, like the Cowboys really are against the ropes right now. If they were to lose this game, I would go as far as to say their playoff hopes are kind of dead. If you look at all the teams above them and all the teams that they would be competing with, if they start off 1-3, I honestly think that's too big of a gap to climb for them because I expected them to be probably what 3-1 or 2-2 at this point in the season, if like after this game, of course. So if they were to start off 1-3, I would say that kind of kills their chances because I never thought they were going to be an 11-12 win team. I thought their ceiling was like 10-7, but I predicted like 9-8 for the Cowboys, and it's looking like that might even be a bit of an overestimation. So they have to win this game. And because of that fact, they are heavy favorites. I am going to have the Cowboys winning close. I think the Giants, I don't know what to think about the Giants. There's no consistency one week to another. They could do some stupid shit every game. You just never know with Daniel Jones at quarterback. But I do think the Cowboys are still the better team, the better roster. But defensively, man, they have to put together some sort of effort because the last 2 weeks against the Ravens and the Saints, their defense has looked terrible. They have to bounce back this week if they want any hopes of making the playoffs. Next up, Sunday opener, we have the Saints heading to Atlanta. Bitter NFC South rivalry here. The Falcons are narrow favorites. Both these teams lost last week. The Saints in extremely close fashion. Both teams in extremely close fashion, by the way, to my both my Super Bowl picks. Well, actually, two of the best teams in football. The Saints played a defensive masterclass on both sides against the Eagles. Neither offense was able to get going, but the Eagles star players showed up to play more than the Saints star players. Saquon ran all over him, and the Saints narrowly lost at home against the Eagles. Whereas the Falcons on Sunday Night Football went toe to toe with the Chiefs. I thought they should have won. They had multiple chances to win. At the end of the game, their defense did a great job slowing down the Kansas City offense, but they could not get the job done. 3rd and 1. They had 3rd and 1 with Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson. They could not get it either time. So that was a bad loss for the Falcons. Both these teams here really looking to win here. I mean, both teams coming off a loss. The Saints, they don't want to waste that hot start with a 2-2 like slide, and the Falcons, they definitely don't want to start off 1-3. So who wants it more? At the end of the day, I do think the Falcons are the better team. I think that Saints start, to be honest with you, was kind of just a flash in the pan. I do not expect them to score 40 points the rest of the season, to be honest with you, unless they play like the Panthers again. But I do have the Falcons winning this game narrowly. These games are always tough between these two teams, but except for last year where the Falcons got blown out the building. But this is a different Falcons team, obviously. I trust the Falcons more, even though the Saints have started off better technically. I just have more faith in the Falcons to get the job done here. So I do have the Falcons narrowly picking up this win, and both teams being tied at 2-2. Next up, Rams travel to Chicago. Rams pulled off a spectacular a miracle win last year against the Niners against all odds without Puka Nakua and Cooper Kupp. They still found a way to win. The Niners, of course, had a fuck ton of injuries as well, but they're coming off that momentum. Whereas the Bears, they just feel like they're sliding, man. They barely won in week one against the Titans. In the last 2 weeks, it's not been good. By the way, have they played? They played the Titans, the Texans, and the Colts. They're just going through the entire AFC South. The Bears are to start the season. But yeah, last week against the Colts, Caleb Williams had like 400 passing yards. So at least you have some sort of positive there, but he still got sacked a whole lot. He still turned it over multiple times, I think. And the Bears defense, they got multiple takeaways from Anthony Richardson, but they still got ran all over by Jonathan Taylor. I don't, it's a really tough game to predict here. I'm going to go with the Rams here, but I absolutely could see a world where the Bears get the job done. The question here is which quarterback turns it over more in this game. I absolutely could see it going both ways because Stafford without Kupp and Puka is just it's tough to move the ball. It's not even his fault. It's just they don't have good enough. They already had one of the shallowest receiver rooms in the league, and without their top two guys, it's tough, man. I don't know how they're going to move the ball, especially like they did against the Niners. So I have the Rams narrowly winning because I think they're still the better team, even with all the injuries. But the Bears absolutely I could see getting a job done here. So I got the Rams winning, improving to 2-2. Next, we get the Vikings heading on the road to Green Bay. Bitter, bitter rivalry here in the NFC North. Packers, I think, will still be without Jordan Love, but that really shouldn't be too much of a problem because Malik Willis has looked extremely good. I think Malik Willis has exceeded all expectations so far. He's 2-0 as the starter. He's played well in both games, played great last year against Tennessee in his revenge game. And the Vikings 3-0. They just keep I have yet to pick a Vikings game correctly. I have picked them to lose every single game so far, and they are 3-0. And they've just blown out the Texans, which are my pick to be fucking AFC champions. So yeah, the Vikings have got off to an A+ start so far, and the Packers have bounced back incredibly well from week one. So now we got a clash in Green Bay. Who comes out on top? I have the Vikings winning this one. I think both offenses will be able to move the ball fairly well, which you may not expect because both defenses have played very well. But I just think these two teams have each other's number. If you want to put it that way, Aaron Jones returning to Green Bay will be an interesting storyline. I just think Malik Willis has looked extremely comfortable, man. And it's when he's playing well, believe you me, he's a tough guy to stop, man. Because he's able to, put together the explosive plays. Obviously, he's extremely athletic with his legs. He's a tough guy to stop, man. When he's confident and he's throwing the ball well, so I think the Vikings are actually going to have their toughest game defensively on their hands here in Green Bay. But I'm finally going to pick the Vikings to win a game. And of course, I guarantee you that they lose. They lose now that I finally picked them. Moving on, though, we have the Steelers going on the road to play the Colts. Now, last week, the Steelers played the undefeated Chargers in Pittsburgh. It was a close game until Justin Fields got hurt. I'm not blaming that on the Steelers. It's just, it is what it is. It was close until Justin Fields went down, and then they pulled away late. Justin Fields has played very well so far. I think he's going to remain, and he has to, right? You can't start off 3-0 and then bench the guy who's played well. And people say, well, he only has this many yards. If you watch the games, you understand that run game has not been great. He does not have that many receivers to throw to besides Pickens and Freiermuth. And then their offensive line has been banged up as well. So Fields, throughout all of that, I think he's played very, very well. He's done his job. They're 3-0. And the defense, the Pittsburgh defense, statistically, between the Broncos, the Falcons, and the Chargers now, they have been absolutely dominant. And I expect them to do the same, honestly, with the Colts. Listen, I think on the road here, the Colts, Anthony Richardson, he's not looked good so far. And I'm not criticizing him. I'm not calling him a bust, nothing like that. We have to understand the man's played like 7 games so far because he got hurt early into his rookie year. So he has not had hardly any experience. Even going back to college, I'd argue Anthony Richardson has played the least amount of collegiate NFL games of any quarterback in the NFL right now. He is the most inexperienced, the youngest quarterback right now. So I'm willing to give him this. I'm willing to give him the entire season. I don't care how bad he plays this year. I am not going to criticize Anthony Richardson or be like, oh, he's a bust, he can't play. I'm not going to do that this year. But with that being said, for a struggling quarterback, you don't want to play Pittsburgh. You just don't want to play Pittsburgh. And the Steelers, on the other hand, I think the Colts defense has played well, but they have been not they've played well, but not great. And I think the Steelers is just a game where they grind it out, not a high scoring game, but they get the job done. They make the bigger plays on defense, and they start off the season 4-0. I think that'll be a great start, an amazing start, obviously, for the Steelers, especially with how much the rest of the AFC North has struggled. The Steelers and the Seahawks are in a very similar situation, to be honest. Next, we have the Broncos traveling to New York to play the Jets. Now, this is interesting because the Broncos blew out, well, I don't know if they blew out, but they comfortably beat the Buccaneers, which I was not expecting whatsoever. That was a real shocker to me. I predicted the Buccaneers to blow out the Broncos, and here they come and get blown out in Denver. So now the Broncos are coming off a bit of momentum. Bo Nix played very well in that game. Don't be mistaken. And now they play the Jets, who have now won two in a row, and they look very comfortable. Who did the Jets play last week? Oh, they play the Patriots Thursday Night Football. They just killed the Patriots. The Jets defense looks like it's firing on all cylinders. And if that's the case, I think Bo Nix is going to struggle a lot. Make no mistake, this will be the best defense he's played so far, even better than the Seahawks in week one. Even though Seahawks look like the best defense in football, I still think the Jets are better. I think Bo Nix is going to struggle. I think he's going to struggle a lot. I think the Broncos offense is going to be very hard pressed to move the football. I think the Jets look very, I think Jets and Aaron Rodgers specifically looks very comfortable right now. And with that being said, you got Nathaniel Hackett as well. Nathaniel Hackett playing the Broncos again. I think the Jets get the job done here fairly comfortably. Not a high scoring game by any means, but I think their defense shuts the Broncos down and the offense does enough to win comfortably. Next up, great game here, possibly the game of the week. Eagles on the road at the Buccaneers. Eagles, by the way, play the Saints, Buccaneers, and fucking Falcons already. So they're going through the whole NFC South. You know, both these teams have very good wins so far. Eagles, by the way, brutal schedule. Eagles had to play the Packers, Falcons, Saints, and Buccaneers, all which look like playoff teams so far. Then you got the Buccaneers. They beat the Lions already, but they lost the Broncos. So I don't know how to feel about either of these teams. I do not know if AJ Brown or Devonta Smith is going to play for the Eagles. I think Devonta Smith certainly not. He suffered a nasty hit last week, brutal, dirty, whatever you want to call it. And then AJ Brown, I hope he plays. I think maybe this could be his return game. That's huge for the Eagles if he does come back. But in Tampa Bay, coming off a loss for the Buccaneers, I think they're going to be more motivated here. Remember, they beat the Eagles last year in the playoffs. This is a rematch of the playoffs last year. I think the Buccaneers just get the job done. I think the Eagles, I think Jalen Hurts has to figure out this turnover thing, man. He leads the all turnover or all quarterbacks in turnovers like since the start of last year. It's like not even close. He needs to limit those turnovers if the Eagles want to have a chance. Their defense looked great last week in New Orleans. I don't know if they can keep it up 2 weeks in a row. I have the Buccaneers taking this one in Tampa Bay. Great game, though. Great game. Next up, Bengals at Panthers. Who would have thought that the Panthers would win a game before the Bengals? Now, they put in Andy Dalton last week, and Andy Dalton tore the Raiders apart. He looked great. That might be the best I've seen the Panthers play in the last 2 years, offensively and defensively, if you want to put it that way. They looked great last week. The Bengals, on the other hand, they just got picked apart. They got absolutely picked apart by rookie Jaden Daniels. That defense just looked terrible. It just looked terrible. I don't know what to say. They looked great against the Chiefs and terrible against the Commanders. There's just no consistency there. I think the coaching job, the Bengals fans, they were complaining about Zach Taylor when they made the fucking Super Bowl. So I mean, now it's like I don't know what to say, man. They got Chase, Higgins, and Burrow healthy. The run game, I don't know if it's they put up 33 points last week. They didn't punt, so I can't complain about the offense. Listen, I have to pick the Bengals here. I just have to pick the Bengals to beat the Panthers in Carolina. But brother, what is wrong with the Bengals? It's like if their offense is playing great, their defense does not get a single stop. If their defense is balling out, the offense does some dumb shit, turnover penalty. It's just something. It's like they just oh, man, it's just such a frustrating team. I would be sick to my stomach if I was a Bengals fan right now, but they just have to beat the Panthers. I don't care how good Andy Dalton looked last week. There is no way on earth the Panthers are winning back-to-back games. I just can't see it. So I got the Bengals winning here in Carolina. Next up, Jaguars. Speaking of teams off to a terrible start, Jaguars travel to Houston. Houston, by the way, getting blown the fuck out in Minnesota last week. I did not see that whatsoever. Their offensive line looked terrible. Houston's did. Laremy Tunzel by himself killed like 4 or 5 drives. The Jaguars, on the other hand, man, they got embarrassed. They got embarrassed by the Bills, and we gotta start talking. Listen, I got the Texans winning this game. We gotta start talking about some serious changes being made in Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence is looking like the most overrated, overpaid player in NFL history, besides Deshaun Watson. And I mean, Doug Peterson, man, what's going on? I know the Jaguars fans are blaming the offensive coordinator, and they might be right. But man, the Jaguars owner before the season said this is the best Jaguars team ever, ever. Even with the Fred Taylor, Keenan McCardell, like the Saxonville, they're all those teams. He said this is the best Jaguars team ever. And I think they're going to start off 0-4. That is embarrassing. Some major change has to take place if they lose to the Texans, which I think they will. The Texans, listen, the Texans coming off a big loss, I think they're going to play possibly their best game of the season, to be honest with you. I think they're going to look sharp on offense at home against the Jaguars. I think their defense is going to step up, play better than they did last week. I just, I think the Jaguars are going to get blown out. I think the Jaguars are going to suffer back to back double-digit losses. And if that's the case, man, I don't know where you go from there. 0-4, your playoff hopes are absolutely dead. They're dead on arrival at 0-4. You're not making the playoffs. So what do you do? What do you do if you miss the playoffs back to back years with Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence? You got to fire Doug Peterson, even though I don't think it's his fault. But it's like, man, you can't miss the playoffs back to back years with this roster. But I think they're off. I think they had a bad offseason, to be honest with you. I was disappointed with the Jaguars offseason. And now it's like, this is what you get, man. You get an 0-4 team that's going nowhere fast. And the Texans, they bounce back. They start off 3-1. A good start for the Texans here. Next up, Commanders at Cardinals. Commanders look amazing offensively. They look dynamic. Just Jaden Daniels is a lock so far for Rookie of the Year, but another Rookie of the Year candidate, Marvin Harrison Jr. in the Cardinals. Marvin Harrison in his last 2 weeks has like what 200 yards and 3 touchdowns. He's been incredible. Kyler Murray looked good, but they did suffer a loss at the hands of the Lions last week. So now they come back. I don't know if they were home already, but they go to Arizona and host the Commanders. Cardinals are favorites in this game. I can see why. I I don't know, man. I don't know. I think the Cardinals, I don't think either of these teams are necessarily good on paper, but I think they're both exciting teams that could beat anybody in the league, potentially. With that being said, I do have the Cardinals taking this one in a high scoring game. This could be a very exciting game here, like very game of the sleeper pick here for game of the week. Um, I think the Cardinals, we saw how bad the Commanders defense looked last week. I think the Cardinals will be able to move the ball effectively. And the Commanders, I just think at this point, I trust Kyler Murray more than Jaden Daniels. I think Jaden Daniels, if he has to play from behind and he has to be forced to throw the football, I think he'll make a mistake this game. And not saying like he's bad or anything. Obviously, I think he's a great young player, but I think the pressure put on him to keep up with the Cardinals offense might be a little too much. He might crack. He may make a mistake, which would lead to the Cardinals taking this win at home. Next up, Patriots travel on the road after a good amount of time off, and they play the 49ers, who need a win. Both these teams, well, Patriots, they don't really care. The Patriots could go 4-13. I don't think anybody cares. The Niners desperately need a win, man. They just back-to-back losses to teams who preseason, nobody thought anything about the Vikings. And this season, after the injuries, they thought they were going to steamroll the Rams. Neither of those things happened. The Niners are heavy favorites at home. I see why. I expect them to blow out the Patriots. That's cap. I expect them to win a close game. I forgot. So let's break this down. I don't think they'll have Deebo Samuel. They will not have Christian McCaffrey. I don't know if they'll have George Kittle. This offense, they didn't struggle to move the ball. Jauan Jennings had a legacy game. Jauan Jennings is the first player since Terrell Owens and Jerry Rice to have 100 yards and 3 touchdowns for the 49ers. Yeah, he had an amazing game. Brock Purdy looked good, by the way. They had so many fucking drops. Ronnie Bell is a wanted man in Sanford. Let me not say that because we know what happened to fucking Ricky Pearsall. But yeah, man, the Niners, they got to win this one. The Patriots defense has looked good so far. To be honest, they shut down the Bengals, played good, I think, against the Seahawks. Didn't play bad against the Jets defensively. It's the offense which is the struggle. And if you're a struggling offense playing the Niners, you should be very concerned. So I have the Niners taking this one, bouncing back, but they need to get some guys back healthy, man. They need to. This offense needs some more of their star players to return. Next up, we have the Browns taking on the Raiders in Vegas. Both these teams really suffering embarrassing losses last week. The Browns might have the worst offensive line in football, and the Raiders, they're the Raiders, man. They got Gardner Minshew at quarterback. Um, man, the Raiders are favorites, man, but I've picked the Browns in every single game so far. And I just have to keep doing it, man. The roster's too good. The roster is too fucking good. Even without Nick Chubb so far, that defense is too good, man, to be giving up more than 20 points. And by the way, before this season, Deshaun Watson was like 9-3 as a starter, or something close to that. Like when he played, it didn't matter how good he played, they won games. That has not been the case so far. I feel like it has to change at some point, man. And they haven't even played a great team. I don't think the Browns have played a single playoff team so far, even the Cowboys. So it's like they really should be dominating their schedule so far, but they're not doing that. And the Raiders, this is kind of their last test. If the Browns lose this week, I'm completely done. I'm giving up all hope for the Browns because the Raiders, they've looked bad so far, and the Browns need a bounce back win here. So I think the Browns go to Vegas and beat the Raiders as the underdogs. But if they don't, man, I don't know what to say. The Raiders got blown out by the Panthers. If you can't beat the team that got blown out by the Panthers, how good are you? Next up, Chiefs go to where are they now? Are they in Vegas? Or are they in LA yet? Chiefs go to LA to play the Chargers. Listen, I would actually pick the Chargers here if Justin Herbert was healthy. I do not know what his situation is. I think it's someone with an ankle. He obviously had to miss. He got taken out last week against the Steelers. I don't know if he's playing, but this is the thing: the Chargers would need a perfectly healthy A+ performance from Herbert to beat the Chiefs. The fact that he's not healthy, I cannot pick the Chargers here. Even though the Chiefs have not looked flawless at all, that you could make an argument they should have lost both of their last two games. I think they're going to go to LA and get the job done and beat the Chargers. And Harbaugh, unfortunately, is going to go from 2-2, or sorry, go from 2-0 and fall to 2-2 in LA. Next up, we have the Bills traveling to Baltimore. Very good game. Bills, this is the thing, man. I'm still not bought. I at this point, I just sound like a hater, but I'm still not bought into the Bills. I don't know what it is. I don't. They've played the Cardinals, the Jaguars. Who else did they play? I don't even know the team they beat. But it's like I'm just not impressed, man. I'm not impressed so far. This is the test. If the Bills win this game, they beat the Dolphins as well. If the Bills win this game, I will say, you know what? You got it. I will give them their props. I will say the Bills are a playoff team. I trust in them. I believe in them. Whatever. I'll say this. I definitely did. I definitely did underestimate Josh Allen. I definitely did. I definitely did that, and I overrated the Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis. I overestimated those guys. Underestimated Josh Allen. I'll admit that. The Ravens so far though, they looked like they put together their most complete, their best game last week against Dallas. It looks like they're back on the right track. And if that's the case, I think the Ravens are just a better team than the Bills. I think they're a better team and they are at home. So they have two advantages here, in my opinion. The better quarterback, maybe two great quarterbacks. So I got the Ravens winning a shootout. I think this both offenses will be able to move the ball. When was the last time Josh Allen played Lamar Jackson? I don't feel like this happens all that often. So very a treat for the NFL fans. This really should be like Sunday night, Monday night football, something like that. But yeah, great game. I will be watching, but I think the Ravens get the job done at home and give the Bills their first loss of the season. Next up, stinker. Absolute stinker of a game. The 0-3 Titans play Skylar Thompson and the Dolphins. I hope Skylar Thompson will not be starting by this point. The Dolphins still have a couple of days to get Tyler Huntley integrated into the system. I hope Tyler Huntley starts by the time this game comes around, but it doesn't really matter. It's embarrassing. It is embarrassing for the Titans that the Dolphins are favorites in this game. I think the Titans have to win this game. Will Levis has looked terrible. They finally started to get DeAndre Hopkins involved last week, but man, the Titans have to win this game, bro. The Dolphins look shit, complete terrible against my Seahawks last week in Seattle. I know they're at home. I know Skylar Thompson has another week to get, acclimate, whatever you want to call it, man. The Dolphins without Tua, they're terrible. They have the worst backup quarterback in football, probably. Um, which, by the way, if you know your quarterback has a history of concussion, injury, whatever you want to call it, don't you think you should invest in a competent backup that's not named Skylar fucking Thompson? That's a massive oversight by the Dolphins, by the way. But yeah, I have the Titans winning this game. They just have to, man. The Dolphins look so shitty. I would pick anybody, even the Panthers, maybe. So yeah, the Titans have to win this one if they have any shot of being a competent team this year. Next up, Monday Night Football game of the week, in my opinion. 3-0 Seattle goes. By the way, let me get my rant off. In 2022, the Seahawks went to Detroit and beat the Lions. Okay. That was Geno's first year. That was the Lions went 9-8. That was the first year of their kind of, upward trajectory, right? In 2023, the next year, we went to Detroit. How do we play a road game against the same team back to back years? I don't know. But we went to Detroit last year and beat the Lions in overtime. Okay, fine, cool. The third year in a row we have to go on the road and play the Lions. How is that allowed? How is it okay that we have to go 3 years in a row on the road and play the same team? I have never seen that before in NFL history. I've never heard of that. How the fuck does this happen? Whatever. That's my little mini rant right there. Both of both of these teams are great so far. They've started the season off well. Seahawks obviously starting off better than the Lions. The Seahawks statistically have the best defense in football so far. I think so. If you look at the numbers, and the Lions have struggled a little bit. They struggled against the Cardinals. They struggled against the Buccaneers. I thought they played well against the Rams. I don't know, man. I think the Lions being at home here gives them the advantage. I do not think they're 3.5 point favorites. I think that number is a little high, but I do think the Lions at home get the job done here. Listen, obviously, I hope the Seahawks win. I hope my pick is wrong here, but I think the Seahawks offense has just yet to have a great game. Geno's had great games. DK's had great games. JSN's had great games. I don't know if we're gonna have K9. If we don't have K9, we struggle to run the ball. Charbonnet played well last week, but overall, we have not been able to really establish that run. And if that's the case, man, I think the Lions, they're a little grittier. They're way better on the lines of scrimmage. Aiden Hutchinson might murder Geno. That's a very good possibility. Charles Cross has played well, but everywhere else in the offensive line, we have struggled so far. We need help. And if the Lions defensive line comes to play, the Seahawks could be in for a long night. So I got the Lions winning this game. I think they moved the ball well enough against our defense. I think definitely. I think the Lions play the best game so far of any team against the Seahawks defense. The Seahawks, by the way, listen, I'll be the first to admit the Seahawks have played a cupcake schedule so far. We played Bo Nix, Jacoby Brissett, and Skylar Thompson. Okay, let's keep it real here. So I got the Lions winning. And by the way, on last week's picks, I think I was 7-10. I think I was 7-10 on last week's picks, or 5-9. I was bad. I was bad. The first 2 weeks I went 9-8. Last week was terrible, but I don't mind because the Cardinals and the 49ers lost. So I'm cool with that, and the Seahawks won. So it is what it is. That's gonna be it for this video, man. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you are new. Comment what you think my picks are, if they were wrong, right, whatever. And I will see you in the next one. Peace.